Okay, the parts for the planer have arrived. Let's see if we can get this thing back together. Let's see what we got going on in here. We got the bearings, 2 bearings. We got the brushes. The field with new cord. So it did come with the cord. And then these are what plug into the brushes. And ground, obviously, here. So we got that. And the replacement armature. All right. Here's the old ones. This is what we're replacing. Not in very good shape. And then the new one compared to the old one. So we'll get these things replaced. I'll get the new bearings on the new armature. Get everything back in the motor housing, and then we'll test the motor. So on to the next step. So the first thing I'm going to do is get these bearings on the armature. And what I did was, first I found a socket that will hit just on this inside ring, not the middle where the bearings are at, or this cover's at, but right on the inside of that ring. So I'm going to use that to drive the bearing on. And I put a couple nuts on this end so that on the block of wood I'm not hitting or putting the force on the threads or the end of this armature shaft. So the nut goes on all the way to this shoulder, and I put another nut up against it. So hopefully that'll keep the force off of the end of that shaft. And this just goes on here like so. And we got to get it, maybe, this has to be down to this shoulder. Right here is where that bearing's got to get down to. So I think I'm just going to use a regular hammer. I don't think it's going to take a whole lot of force. Take my time and make sure I'm making progress. As that sound changed, I could tell I was up against the shoulder. So there's that side. Now to do this side, I'm going to take these nuts off, and then it's going to fall on the floor. This is a reverse thread, so I don't have a nut or anything that will go on there, so I'm going to put the pulley back on it. And it goes on, it's like I said, it's reverse thread, so screw that on, and it goes pretty much right up against that bearing, but it only hits the metal, which is what it should do. And then now this one goes on all the way to this shoulder here. So same thing. As soon as that sound changed, and there we go. Now that's got the bearings on the armature. Now on to the next part. Okay, so the next thing is to get the field back into the motor housing, and pretty much there's holes in there because these screws to hold it in, and the cable comes out the hole on the side over here, so you can pretty much see how this sits down in there, and it just slides down in there. Probably take a little effort to, not as much as I thought it did, to put it in there. And then these should, make sure you don't lose the little star washers that go on there. Hopefully these are all lined up with the holes. Get the wire out of the way. I just snug them up. And then I also took out the brush holder, I think is what it's called. It's just two little Allen, 3mm Allen screws right here, set screws. Loosen those up. These will slide out because you need to be able to, you got to be able to plug in those two wires at the back of this field. These wires are a little stiff. I think you can, yeah, they're long enough to reach out. So that you can plug those in. Like so. And you can see where the indention was, of it being in there. And it'll probably pretty much line it back up as that set screw goes into the old indention. Yeah, I felt it turn a little bit. So just snug those up a little bit. And there's that one. Same thing over here. Slide it in there. Tighten this down. And that puts those back in there for the brushes. Now, I know you can't see it, but if I remember right, when I took this out, the connectors were bent back a little bit, probably just so they'd be out of the way of the armature. So just reach in the back hole here and just kind of bend them back away from the center. That way they're free of they don't take a chance on hitting the armature or anything. And make sure which they shouldn't be. If you bend them the right way, they won't be in the way of the brushes going in, because they're kind of bent toward, well, this one goes toward the top, and then this one goes toward this over here. So, and you can see, as long as you can see through there, like I can look through there and see that they're not in the way. And then the ground wire comes out through, there's two holes. One for this, the one for the main wire, and the ground wire comes out the little slotted looking hole. Like so. And then you'll kind of, well, you know what? I wasn't paying attention. I don't know if it matters or hurts anything, but I think I want to make sure. Hang on, let me get this in here. Come on. Almost there. They're almost through. What I was doing was, when I first put that in, I had it going behind the white wire going to the field. And I don't know that it would matter or not, but I wanted it in front of it, not wrapped around it. So just changed it. You kind of take the old field and see kind of how far back that grommet went. This is pretty thick, so it will take some effort because it's got to make that bend as well. It should. There we go. Yep. Just take some pliers and push that. And then you gotta push it into the hole. And it goes back like that. If I can get it started. This might be the hardest part of the whole process, is getting this grommet back in this hole. And I want to be careful not to break anything or. There it went. Snap it in. Now I can take this and turn it. And hopefully, yeah. I was just making sure that wasn't up too far. Looks about the same as what that one was, so I think we're okay. So that's got the field in there, the new wire. And then the armature goes in, this bearing right here. fits down, it'll fit in this little, it'll fit in this right here. So it pretty much should just sit down in there. Yep. Just like so. So what I'm going to do first is I put the pulley back on there so I can rest that on this block of wood. And I'm just going to lightly, with a little mallet, see if I can go ahead and get that bearing seated in this plate. It doesn't take much to push it in there. I think it's pretty much in. I just work my way around. Little taps. I'll take this back off. And now we can slide this back in here. Be careful not to knock stuff around. And that bearing should be back in there. And then same things, I'll just set that on here, and I'm just going to make sure it's lined up. And just lightly tap it home. There we go. In there just like that. And now the 4 screws that come in from the back into the plate. Okay. And then that's a little ground screw. Okay. Now that might as well finish this part off. Put the new brushes back in. I bought new brushes because if the motor was burnt up and I was buying them, might as well spend $16 or whatever it was on some replacement brushes. So that I don't hear anything rubbing. Spins freely. I don't hear anything rubbing or anything like that. So slide these in. Get the little cap. Doesn't have to be super tight. And they pretty much, they can only really go in one way. So should be horizontal. So get down in there like so. It's kind of a pain to hold that in and then get this cap on. There we go. Okay. Motor is back together. Now I gotta get the pulley back on, which I'll do that. But first I'm going to bring the top over. It has the safety switch and the power switch and all that, and I want to plug it in and just make sure it starts up before I get it all back together and try it. So that'll be next. So what I'm going to do before I put this back in the planer and start putting it back together is I wired everything back up to the switch, and I'm just going to make sure the motor starts up and runs normal, and before I go through the process of putting it all back together. So I just switch, and I'll hit the safety switch here, make sure it comes on. Okay, that definitely sounds a lot more normal than it did before. So, okay, so we got to get the pulleys back on here. We'll put a crescent wrench. Okay, I want it to be this way. That on there, make sure we didn't lose any of these clips. Nope, they're still all there. Now, I'm gonna get this lined up so I can get it on there. What's going on here? I figured that would slide on there a little easier than this. And it's going on okay, but I figured it'd be a little more. That's okay though. Yeah. And then these are the old brushes. We don't need those. Okay, motor's back together. Let's get started on this. Okay, let's turn this thing on and see if everything we did works. So here we go. Sounds more normal now. Let's plane something to see how that goes. We'll turn on the dust collector, see how this works. Now we just got to get it calibrated, and she'll be back in business.